Whether you've added a vintage pocket watch or an antique wristwatch to your collection, inherited it or received it just as a gift from your grandpa, your grandma, your dad, whatever, you're probably wondering what the value of your new timepiece is. My name is Felix from Goldemeier Vintage Watches, and my brother and I are vintage watch dealers from Germany. So today we just would like to share our expertise with you in order to give you a guide on how to estimate the value of your new timepiece. Of course, it would be the easiest if the watch came in the original box with all the documents. But that is known to be gold dust and only really worth something if you get everything together from the first owner of the watch. And besides, so much time and energy is now invested in forging documents and boxes that even experts can no longer tell the difference. As with the most things we buy and sell, the value of a vintage watch depends on a number of factors. So here are 4 important tips for finding the value of a vintage watch. Number 1, the manufacturer. Number 2, the age. Number 3, the condition. And finally, number 4, the value. So let's start with the number 1, the manufacturer, and work through it step by step. You may not even know the name of the manufacturer of your inherited watch, let alone how much the thing is worth. And just because there's no name like Rolex, Omega or Patek Philippe on the watch doesn't mean it is not worth anything. The collector market for vintage watches is hotter today than ever before, and many lesser-known brands like Universal Genève, Enica, and even old Movado or Doxa watches are worth some serious money today. So the second important point that should precede all others is age determination. Finding out how old your watch is not that difficult in most cases, and this is another important factor that will help you find out the value of your watch. Most old watches are given a serial number when they are manufactured, which you can use to identify the date of manufacture. Once you have this number, the rest of determining the age is a breeze. If you find multiple serial numbers on your watch, be sure to use the serial number on the movement, not the serial number on the watch case. Cases and watches are often made by different companies, and each usually has its own serial number. But in the most cases, these can be found directly on the movement and sometimes on the case backs as well. But there are also exceptions, such as vintage Rolex watches, where the serial number can be found between the lugs at the fixed clock position and you only have to take off the bracelet to read it. This line Datejust has the serial number 2466819, and we use a book to date our vintage watches, but there are several websites that can provide you with the same information. So as you can see here in our book, our serial number with the beginning 24 falls between 2.241 and 2.589. And so it can be dated to 1970. So we already have done the second point. But there are still some things to mention about this topic. Because in most cases you have to open the watch first to get to the honey, and understandably many watch newbies reach their limits. Vintage watch cases are either screwed, like Rolex Datejusts, or they have a snap-on case back. With snap-on case backs, the case backs are simply attached to the case by pressure and snap into place. So they can easily be opened with a so-called watch knife, which is, a very sharp knife. But it also works with a thin kitchen knife, for example. Most of the case backs have a small notch at the edge, in which you must carefully insert the knife sideways. Then the lid can be pried open quite easily. Screwed cases can be opened with inexpensive case opener or a soft rubber ball, whereby the rubber ball has the advantage of not scratching the case back. So if you use a rubber ball, you need a huge amount of smack in the wings to get the case back off with it. However, as test, the rubber ball is perfect for 90% of all cases. But always keep in mind that screwed case backs were invented to keep cases waterproof. When opening and closing with non-professional tools, this waterproofness can quickly expire, whereby we advise everyone to bring vintage watches in contact with water, even waterproof pieces. If both options are too unsafe for you, simply contact a trusted watchmaker who will open the watch and find the serial number for you. As mentioned before, some manufacturers do not use continuous serial numbers or have stopped this practice a long time ago, which of course can make age identification much more difficult. These include brands like Patek Philippe, Vacheron Constantin, Cartier, Piaget or even Audemars Piguet. In most cases, only the watch manufacturers themselves have the data to match a serial number with the production date of a watch. Many brands provide an AHIVE extract, which basic information about the model, production date and reference number of an older or vintage watch. However, this takes time and, of course, costs money. We'll link you a complete guide on this subject in the video description. Fortunately, there are other but much more time-consuming ways to roughly narrow down the vintage watches by age, while it is often impossible to find out the exact year. For example, you can use the reference number to search for old press releases about the launch and find out when the watch was launched, whether in the 60s, 70s or 80s. You can also search watch forums, marketplaces like Chrono24 and auction sites like eBay. Then you already have a rough clue. Also, sometimes you're lucky enough to find the identical watch with its papers in online ads. There you can see it in black and white when the watch was sold. However, this is only useful if the production period is only a few years and not decades. Now we come to the third and most important point: condition. Condition is key. Basically, the term condition describes two different aspects: the cosmetic condition and the functional condition. Various modifications may have been made to old watches over the years that affect their resale value. The most common form of modification of watches is that they are improved with parts from the aftermarket or with parts from other watches, so-called Franken watches. These alterations reduce the value of the timepiece, as it's no longer completely authentic. The most common changes affect the stem and the crown of the watch, as these are the most stressed. However, the modifications can also affect the hands, hour markers, the luminous materials used, parts of the movement, and even the entire dial. It can even affect the entire watch. Recognize these changes is in most cases impossible for a layman, and detective work that requires a lot of experience. But there are a few tricks and tips you can use to spot the rudest changes. When it comes to original parts, our old friend Google Images comes into the game. Especially in the 1960s and 70s, many watches had variations where the hands could vary on the same model. However, if all the images you find of your watch shows different hands, a different shaped crown, or a flat glass instead of your watch's domed glass, you may have a watch that contains non-original parts. So compare, compare, compare. If you want to learn more about this specific topic, just check our buying guide video. We'll link you the video in the description. Now let's check out the functional condition. First of all, make sure and test whether your watch is working or not. If the ticking of your watch is clean and steady and has a faint metallic sound, it is probably still functional. However, if it sounds like something is grinding, your old watch urgently wants to be in the hand of a watchmaker. Another indicator of a watch functionality is the movement of the balance wheel, which you can see after opening any watch. Does it look straight or even, or does it have a wobble in its movement? Any wobbling could be a sign of a bent or broken balance pin or damage to the balance jewels. To investigate the condition of your watch beyond simply running, check the hands move with the time the watch probably set, the date wheel jumps at or just before midnight, and any complications such as second time zone or chronograph are operating. Precision is important. A date that jumps hours before or hours after midnight. A chronograph that stops accidentally or doesn't reset accurately to 12. Or hands that don't move despite an audible tick indicate problems that need to be fixed by servers. All of which reduce the value when you sell a watch. Each average civilian day includes 86,400 seconds. A watch that loses 20 seconds per day has a rate of accuracy of 99.98%. Many owner insists that his or her watch goes well on the wrist when they want to sell a watch. But person sense are not enough to measure the accuracy of a watch. The tools and experience of a watchmaker or jeweler are required. Having a watch serviced will increase the value of a watch. Therefore, it is important, especially before selling, that you have your watch serviced by a professional. A good buyer will always ask for the last inspection certificate. When we buy a car, we also want to know what was done at the last service. After looking at the heart of the watch, we check the cosmetic condition. As with all items and values that are traded, the same applies here, as already mentioned. Condition is key. Simply put, the cosmetic condition is best in NOS, new old stock condition. You can say a 10 out of 10, which is when the metal retains its factory finish and definition, the crystal has no scratches or chips, the dial and hands retain their factory condition and appear untouched, and the bracelet looks like new. And anything that deviates from this ideal will have a corresponding effect on the value. Even the so-called repolishing of older dials does not increase the value of a watch, but reduced it drastically. When it comes to older watches, collectors generally prefer an honest dial that is imperfect, but factory, original in color, imprint and index placement. Imagine an unrestored 1970s Porsche with a patina of age compared to a smooth restoration. Collectors always opt for unrestored. The condition of the bracelet, strap and buckle are also important factors in assessing the cosmetic condition of a watch for sale. The same principles apply to bracelets as to case appraisals. That means clean workmanship and minimal refinishing. All of this is critical in finding value when you are looking to sell a watch. However, with bracelets there is another factor: links and screws. Inspect your bracelet to make sure all original links and mounting screws are present. If not, this can also reduce the sale price. The condition of the crystal and dial are also important factors. Most modern watches have glasses made of synthetic sapphire. These clear glasses have the same basic composition as rubies or natural sapphires, which makes them extremely scratch resistant. However, this extreme hardness also means that sapphire glasses are prone to chipping, cracking and breaking. Since these defects cannot be repaired, a damaged sapphire crystal must be replaced to restore its condition before you sell the watch. Sapphires with domed or slanted surfaces are the most expensive to replace. On the other hand, certain vintage and specialty luxury watches are fitted with thermoplastic glasses, also known as plexiglass, to create an optical effect or prevent cracking. While these glasses are far less fragile than sapphire glass, thermoplastic is soft and prone to scratches and cracks. Light scratches can easily be removed, but deeper damage will need to be replaced. The dials should appear unaltered and flawless, but of course there are many watch collectors who prefer patina on dials, but a large part prefers dials untouched by age. This is the condition in which a watch left the factory. When the watch are serviced, just for example, less experienced watchmakers leave marks when dials and hands are removed. Furthermore, lashes and dust on the dial must be painstakingly corrected. There's so much more to mention here. If I've forgotten anything on this topic, please add in the comments. So let's get to the last point for today: how to find the value of a watch with all this information. So now you need to gather all the information about your watch and relate it to the current market. The identity of a watch provides its owner the first key to finding the value, while the condition further refines it. The final step is to learn about and use the online resources that allow sellers and buyers alike to value watches. These days there are plenty of online watch retailers, so it's easier than ever to get at least an approximate estimate of the value of your new vintage watch. But be warned, just because an obscure website or dealer or private person offers a watch similar to yours for more than $10,000, that doesn't mean that your watch will fetch anywhere near that much. At this stage of the game, there are a few key places you should look. Chrono24 is one of the best collection sites for watch dealers around the world. And if you can find a relatively accurate price estimate anywhere, it is on this site. Find your reference using the search window above, then filter by year of manufacture, material, and so on. In the best case, a few identical watches will appear. Then compare the condition of these watches with your watch to estimate what range of price you are in. So let's look at Chrono for our Datejust with line dial from 1970. The cheapest is listed for €3,887. The most expensive steel variant is at €5,850, a difference of almost €2,000. Important to mention is, just because the upper DJ is offered for 5.8, it does not automatically mean it is worth it. I just want to show that there is a price range for each model. And the question of the condition of your watch decides where your watch is in this price range. Now I'm sure some of you are wondering what to do if you have not found much information about your watch. No press releases, no ads, no comparison pictures on Google. If you could not determine the age exactly and you can't even find a single watch with the same reference on Chrono. If this is the case, you still have the option to compare your reference with similar references. Pay attention to the same materials and case shapes, as well as dial colors and other details of the watch, such as the hands and hour markers. This can help you decide whether you have a $500 or a $5,000 watch in your hands. We always go with our gut feeling in this case, which takes, of course, a lot of experience. But always remember, you can't go wrong. If you price your watch too high, no one will buy it, and you just have to adjust your expectations and set the price to the demand for your watch. So that's all for today. We hope you could learn something new again. Have a great day and hope to see you in our next video.